What should advertisers keep in mind when it comes to their advertisements? In this article, we're going to look at what advertising really is, how advertisers should consider their target audience more than ever in this day and age, the perception in the mind of consumers when they see advertisements, and we're going to look at whether advertising is a good thing or not in terms of the current day and age. Things that advertisers should keep in mind during uncertain times. It's no fact that COVID-19 has created a highly sensitive audience when it comes to advertising. People and their points of view about advertising have drastically changed, with many people believing less and less what they see advertised in their social media and other channels. People also have financial worries that you need to address when it comes to advertising your product. Advertisers need to acknowledge this by adjusting pricing, incentives, and other factors that people really depend on. In fact, many landlords are even pushing back rent or even waiving the rent for a brief period when it comes to people having financial worries in mind. And the same needs to happen with businesses. They need to do their share to ensure that we are all in this together, and that this is shown to the people that they are advertising to. Consumers are concentrating on the fundamentals, which means that anything that is deemed that is extra and not necessary in this day and age might be put to the side, at least for the short-term period. And this might be something that advertisers should keep in mind during uncertain times. So, if you are an advertiser, how can you choose the right media channel to advertise your product or service? There are 5 great types of advertising media channels that, in this day and age, are still relevant and can still deliver the message to your audience. The first is video advertising, which is television and YouTube. Today, everyone can have their own TV show and have ads in it, and this is what YouTube has allowed us to do. In fact, video ads have expanded beyond the traditional cable box, and now you can see ads each time you go on YouTube. If you are a media planner, you can use this opportunity to showcase your commercials across the web, and not only just on YouTube but on other video related sites. The next place where you can advertise is audio channels, so you can have your own podcast, which is similar to a radio show in the traditional sense of the word. There are tons of podcasts on a multitude of different subjects, and advertising on these podcasts, if they resonate with your audience, can lead to a great success. The key is to find the right podcast with the right audience for your product or service. The next is newspapers. Even though it is one of the old ways of advertising, you can still use these to get in front of your audience. People still read newspapers, especially in this day and age, where they want to know what is actually happening around them. So this is a great way to advertise and get your message across to your audience. Finally, we're going to look at social media, which is, in a way, the best for last. This is one of the newest channels for media planners to utilize, but its distribution and the people on it have increased exponentially in less than a decade. In fact, the first social media placement occurred on Facebook in 2006, and today you can't really swipe down on social media without having ads put in front of your face, whether you like it or not. This means that you need to be considerate, if you are an advertiser, in realizing that you are interrupting people as they are doing other things. When they are on social media, they might want to relax, and so seeing your ad could lead to negative impact if you do not target the right people with the right message. With that said, here are the things that advertisers should keep in mind during the COVID-19 pandemic. Social media. This is the answer to social distancing. So many people are finding ways to connect with others, and advertising on social media means that you need to use and take great care with the message that you plan to put in front of your audience. You also need to plan now for future spikes in performance. There are different sectors that have been affected more than others by the coronavirus. The good news with this is that measures are being taken around the globe to decrease this negative impact, and hopefully in a short time it will all be back to the levels it was before the pandemic hit. This means that planning now for a future spike in performance is the right time to do it, because our best days are actually ahead of us. In these uncertain times, it is important to recall that some of humankind's greatest work followed difficult events. So if we look back at the future to see if we look back at the past to see where the future is heading, we can see that this is usually always the trend. So now is the time to plan for the future. And the same thing happens with advertising. If you just want brand awareness, it is important that you are setting the stones now for when things get better in the future. When it comes to Facebook, they have also recently released new guidelines that advertisers should keep in mind when it comes to adjusting and performing their ads. In fact, Facebook outlines a range of key tips and considerations to think about, such as using A/B split testing and multi-cell lift testing to optimize quickly. So Facebook says that testing can help you adapt your ads and optimize your strategy for the current environment. Quick learning can be impactful for targeting changes or developing new creative approaches. By using split testing, you can get to where you want to go quickly and without using too much of your budget. The next thing that Facebook suggests is to consider impact by industry. In their words, different verticals and products are facing starkly different realities, and their measurement strategies should be adjusted in turn. This is similar to what we spoke about before, when we said that different industries are hit differently, and so adjusting your message based on the industry you're catering for is very important. The final tip from Facebook that we're going to look at is that they said that you need to evaluate your measurement strategy. In their words, there is no one-size-fits-all measurement approach for these fast-changing times, but you know your business best. The right strategy depends on your goals, customers, and the marketing conditions for your industry. So these are all things that you should keep in mind when evaluating and testing your advertising strategy. One final point that we will look at in this article is that we mentioned before that looking back at the past can sometimes show us what will happen in the future. And this is the same with advertising. In fact, some people suggest that to keep a consumer brand top of mind, consider old school advertising. So going back to the past and using the tactics that used to be used in old school advertising can also lead to some great results now in the present. People want certainty, and old school advertising gave them just that. And this might be something that you might want to consider for your brand or business. In this article, we've looked at different factors when it comes to advertising and what you should keep in mind when doing just that. We spoke about advertising and whether it is good for consumers. We spoke about when advertising will help or hurt consumers. We spoke about the perception in the mind of consumers and how advertising needs to address this, especially when times are difficult. And we spoke about the ways that advertising on social media has changed and what things you need to keep in mind during such a time. When it comes to advertising your brand, product or service, keep these factors in mind, use them, measure the results, and experience success.